those who have been the beneficiaries of this. I'm here with Mr. Fernando Martinez. He is the Senior Vice President of Network Success under NSMDC. Thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you about the who, what, when, where, and why of NSMDC, because many people hear they hear the name, the acronym, and they're still trying to make the connection. So drill down what it is that happens here, especially under your helm.
Sure, absolutely. So let me start with the who. And the who is that the NSMDC is the only multicultural organization in this country that supports the development and the growth of minority businesses. And the minority businesses and the ethnicities that we support are Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, Alaska Natives, Asians, Pacific Islanders. So those four ethnicities, we're the only organization in this country that supports their development. And we have various programmings, right? The NSMDC is an organization that has 23 affiliates across the country. So even though we are the headquarters organization, we govern the 23 affiliates around the country. We have affiliates in Florida, Seattle, Southern California, New York, Boston, all across the country, because that's how we're attracting corporate support, and that's how we're attracting these minority businesses that we can then help develop and grow. The effect of that is that it drives revenues and incomes into our communities of color, so that then these communities of color become empowered. Their infrastructures are growing, their infrastructures are getting better, their school systems are getting better because we're paying more taxes in those communities. So there's a significant impact based on the stuff that we do every day at the NSMDC. Now, what the why is this, and I kind of alluded to it just a second ago. It's the economic impact that we have on our communities. Nationally, across the country, last year, our minority businesses generated $316 billion in revenue. The effect of that is that you can add an additional 33% directly and indirectly to that 316 billion. So if you add another 100 billion, we're talking about over $400 billion in spend and impact in these communities. The other great thing about the NSMDC is that even though we're ethnic minority centric, what happens is we help our communities at large, because our companies are more likely to hire people of color. Statistics show that minority businesses hire 25% more employees of color. And so when we hire more people of color, we invest in our communities of color, we empower communities of color, and that's what it's all about.
Now connect that, Fernando, with the wealth gap, because I have so many reports on how do we change the wealth? Is it here? Is it this area? But businesses really drive America. Small businesses do. So when they drive America, then connect that to improving or decreasing this wealth gap.
So I love that question, and thank you for asking that. So, I used a 2020 census study to do some finding, do some research. In 2020, the findings were that this country generates about $38 trillion in business. Of those $38 trillion, $23 trillion go to Wall Street companies, Fortune 500 companies, and this is great because they're the companies that support us. Mm-hmm. The remainder of that, the other 13, 14 trillion that comes about, only 1.6 trillion of that goes to businesses of color.
Yes.
Right? And so the gap is very, very significant because that's only 0.08% of what's out there. And so at the NSMDC, we're trying to drive towards bridging that gap. Our first goal is to get to $1 trillion by 2030. And to get to that goal, we have to continue to build a relationship with our corporate members, identify the services and products that these corporations are buying, and then build the MBEs to match that need, that have that capacity to grow and that have that capacity to deliver on services. And the way to do that is to really focus on what's the need and what is the customer value chain. It's not just about the supply chain that will help us, but understanding what the value chain is, because what we do here today, what we're doing here today in Baltimore, how is that going to impact what the customers receive from our corporate members?
Absolutely. I talk to a lot of business owners very often, and one issue that many have is that we know that, especially for African Americans, and the fastest growing, especially women, Black women, for small businesses. However, one issue that many businesses have is scaling. So what is the organization doing for those who are like, I hear you, I love it, I've got a business, but scaling is an issue that I really have?
I think and that's a problem that we've had for a long, long time, and that's a problem that we wrestle with every day. So our focus is, so we operate under 4 pillars: certify that you're truly an ethnic minority business, develop your skill set, develop your technical capabilities, develop your business savvy, develop your sales programming, connect, create those connections like what we're doing in Baltimore today. We've got an exhibit upstairs. We've got a tremendous conference going on with close to 5,000 people, over 400 exhibitors where we're building transactions, and then advocating, right? So we have to educate our community in terms of how valuable the ethnic minority business community is. We have to educate them on how valuable it is to our corporations to be inclusive in their supply chain, because that's going to drive not only value to the communities of color, but it's also going to drive value to their shareholders, because guess what? 68% of the people in this country say, I do business with companies that I align values with.
Yes.
And if my values are not aligned with that company, I'm not buying products from that company. So when corporations say, like, we value supplier diversity, suppliers are going to come to them, consumers are going to come to them, and it's going to help their bottom line.
Lastly, if someone wants to become a member, get involved, really transform their business, because you all have created an amazing ecosystem here. What do people need to do?
So first of all, I'm just going to do a little plug, right? www.nmsdc.org. Again, www.nmsdc.org. That's where you can find anything. That site will tell you what it takes to certify as an ethnic minority business. That'll tell you which affiliate organization is in the area where you're headquartered in, because that's what we do. We've got this network of 23 affiliates that bring that value, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very hard for us as the lead organization to be in 23 places at a different time, right? So we've got so many minority businesses that are trying to grow. So first, go to the website. Second, go to the regional council and engage with them and help them educate you on what it does to take to certify. Once you get through that certification process, then the growth and the development, the connectivity, everything starts. So that's the way we do it. Now, we can't do that for the MBEs unless we have the corporate support. We can't do that unless we have the public sector support. So our corporate members, our public sector members, is the vehicle, is the vessel by which we're growing these businesses. So we need to have both the MBEs that can scale up, and we can help them develop that scalability, whether it's through access to more capital, whether it's growth through acquisition, whether it's just developing, right? Every corporation has a different need. Yeah. And so with the corporations aligned to our corporate members and the NMSDC being in the middle as a convener, that's where magic happens.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Thank you so much for talking to us, and much success on the work that you are doing, because this really is about closing the wealth gap and uplifting our communities. And when we do that, we uplift the rest of the world.
Exactly. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
My pleasure.